Apparo Tutorials. Setting up security. This tutorial explains how to use security groups for access control. It consists of 3 parts. Part 1 explains the basics. Part 2 the settings for designer users, and Part 3 the security for business users. Part 1. The basics. The top hierarchy level, the super admin, is stored in the Apparo Configuration Manager. In the menu, Web Security System, you will find the entry, Web Security Groups for Administrators. Members of the security groups listed here have full access, system-wide. You can leave this field empty, but then all users have full access. If your configuration manager doesn't have the other settings, then you are probably using the Cognos, or Click version. In this case, the security groups and settings are taken directly from the underlying BI system. We are using the standalone version in this tutorial, as it contains additional security settings for the built-in portal. All other security settings are the same, in all versions. In addition to the super admin in the configuration manager, there is another mandatory admin group. In the client settings you will find the tab, Access Rights. The Apparo Client Administrator has full access to this client. If you leave this field empty, all users have full access. To be able to use all the security settings, you need both the super admin in the configuration manager, and the Apparo Client Administrator. Additional security groups must be entered separated. It is possible to use placeholders such as asterisks. This string matches the 3 groups we have entered before. Another placeholder is the percentage character. Security groups are case sensitive, so admin group is not always equal to admin group. Most security settings are based on a whitelist, so if you enter 1 or more security groups, the access is restricted to those groups. If you leave them blank, all users have full access. Part 2. Security settings for designer users. At the top of the hierarchy is the super admin from the configuration manager. He has full rights in all clients. Then follows the Apparo Client Administrator, with unrestricted access to all features of this client. The Apparo Connection Administrator can create, edit and delete database and email server connections. The Apparo Designer manages business cases, and can create, delete and edit business cases and folders. The Apparo Import and Export Administrator can import and export business cases and connections. And the Apparo Portal Administrator can import, export and edit all portal entries of this client. This setting is available in the standalone version only. To prevent business users from accessing the designer, all these settings must have groups in them. The mapping to the client is also important. Only users of the entered groups can see the client. This affects both designer and business users. It is also possible to restrict the access to database and email connections. Only designer users who are member of the entered groups can use these connections. Please remember, if left empty, all designer users can use this connection. The last settings for designer users are on folder level. It is possible to assign certain groups to the folder, which can see and open it, and also to allow editing of folders and subfolders for certain groups. Part 3. Security settings for business users. At the top are the super user again, and the Apparo Client Admin. Then follows the mapping to the client, in the client settings, in the tab Client Head. Business users who are member of the entered groups, can run the containing business cases. The next level is the folder level, where you can restrict access to all business cases in the folder. This function affects designers and business users. With the last setting, you can restrict access to the business cases contained in the folder in another way. Members of the groups entered can execute the business cases, but only in read-only mode. This means that they cannot insert, edit, and import data, or use scripts, executable files or stored procedures, either via button or automatically. The last three levels must be enabled in the business case first. In the Features menu, you will find the Security Feature settings under Access Control. In the Security menu, you can now restrict the access to the business case. Only members of the listed security groups can run this business case. Now we come to the rights control on feature level. You can, for example, restrict the entry of new data rows to certain user groups. Click on the link and enter the user groups in the following window. Only users of Group XXX can now enter new data rows. Many other features also support security group-dependent behavior, inserting, editing, deleting, Excel export, filtering and so on. Last but not least, you can control the behavior on widget level. Security settings on widget level are hiding or making read-only, default and constant values, lookup filters, and so on. Questions? Send an email to support@apparo.solutions.